It was unexpected. Nobody had rung up, nobody had said anything, but luckily we were able to do the honours of the place, etc. And so I said goodbye, never thought about it anymore. My God, 4 days later they did exactly the same thing all over again.
Doing an answer.
And now for the next 2 minutes we're going to show you a cartoon film.
Walt Disney said, you're having trouble with the film industry. They'll let you have newsreels, but they won't let you have anything else. Now I will. He said, I'll give you as many Mickey Mouse as you want. And we used them all the time.
Child of the valley, an innocent maiden, you see.
And I am a desperate Desmond. I own all the town property.
Well, in 1936, I and the rest of the family were operating a small puppet show, which we used to do for parties and things all over the country. And at that time, there was an exhibition by the British Puppet and Model Theatre Guild at Victory House, Leicester Square. And we used to go down there every evening. And the TV people asked for a sort of mixed show to put on television, puppets, glove puppets, the lot. And we did just 2 or 3 of our items, of which this was one. Now this is a scrapbook that my father kept over the years. This is the artist's impression of the studio, and as far as I can recall, there was, at the far end of it, a sort of glass-fronted office where the people worked who put on the music for us. They had a rather unfortunate habit of putting the music on in the wrong order, so we used to try and keep at least 3 lots of dolls ready so that whichever one they started with, we could snatch up the dolls for that one, because it all went out live. You couldn't go back. Once you'd started, you had to go on. And here was a centre page spread from the Radio Times, which appeared in February 1937. It shows my father with his dolls, and this musical item, which was really our best item and the one we were known for.
Radio was at a very, very high level of quality and output in the 30s. Television was new, a totally new means of communication, and radio was suspicious, jealous, and I think quite sincerely thought it was unnecessary.
Everything came from Broadcasting House. And so if you were rung up on the telephone, it was the bookings. Miss Helen Hewitt was the one, I think, in charge in those days. And she would say, Mr. Devlin, are you free on such and such a time? And then she would say, I'm afraid it's only television, because television fees were only at that time, I think, 2/3 of the ordinary broadcasting fee. And so she was always a little tentative and had to explain that it was only television.
They didn't like what was going on at Ali Pali. It was outside their realm altogether. They had very little control over it, fortunately, because we had to get on with what we were doing. There was no good waiting for memos to come up from Broadcasting House. It had to be done now, and urgently now. Now, of course, it was a complete change for the corporation and not a very welcome thing at the time. I mean, in the play department, the head of drama was horrified at the number of plays we were doing, which very much affected his routine for his year's programs, that sort of thing. They didn't like it.
Soon programs began to take on a definite pattern, and the Sunday night play was established.
The boys. Okay. Who tipped Spike O'Hara off? The kid. O'Hara's been sighted outside. Gee, I didn't think he'd come back. He's inside.
Angelo, if I miss him, you'll get him. But I want everything piano, piano. Piano.
Pianissimo.
Avanti. Hello, Spike.
I'm quite sure that that recreation was sincerely done, but I remember, it's years since I've seen it now, of course, but I do remember quite clearly thinking, I'm terribly sorry, it wasn't like this.
Would I be going out?
You're not going out.
There was great acting between 36 and 39 at Alexandra Palace, and very fine actors. Incidentally, very good plays.
An author who very much took us up, I'm glad to say at the time, was J.B. Priestley. We did about 16 of his plays. He wrote one specially for us called Whitehall Wonders, and he came up occasionally to tea and he would say things like, you know, there's a play of mine called Bees on the Boat Deck. We knew it perfectly well. It had been in Shaftesbury Avenue. And he said people didn't run very well at the time, but I think you could get Ralph Richardson to do it. Shall I speak to him? And then he spoke to him and he did do it.
There was a marvellous two-studio production of Shakespeare's The Tempest with a young Peggy Ashcroft as an unforgettable Miranda. She was marvellous. And George Devine, later to become famous at the Royal Court, played Caliban beautifully.
When it was the close-up, you felt this huge thing rolling up to you there until it was about that distance from your face, and the cameraman was only about 2 foot away from that, and through his earphones you could hear perfectly clearly all the loud instructions from the control room, and so you heard, you know, cut off his ears, don't mind the top of his head, get in closer, closer, while you were saying, ah, dear Juliet, or whatever it might be.
And don't forget, everything was live. There were no recording methods available. Nothing was structured, artificial. For good or ill, it happened.
Perhaps if you were, you know, playing a scene, a fairly close scene, with somebody else, and they wanted, this would be in shot, and then they wanted close-ups of both of you. The close-up camera would come in on Madam, and as soon as you were out of shot, somebody would give you the office from behind, and you would drop to the ground and crawl on hands and knees about 3 or 4 yards away to the other side of the studio where your own camera was, which you rose in front, and then close-up of her, close-up of you, and the passionate interlude was played with your back to your partner and about 3 or 4 yards in between you.